Nice to see you. Tonight it's 7:15 here in Australia, and tonight I just saw this quote by the head of Suno, whose name is Mikey something. Mike, let me look that up. Head of Suno is Mikey Schumann. I saw this quote. This apparently was said in like January, so it's kind of old news, but it's new to me. Suno, if you don't know, is a generative music AI platform. It's like a web-based app, I guess, and you can prompt it to create music from scratch. And recently, they have been getting sued by Warner Music and maybe other record labels because the accusation is that they used copyrighted material to train their model. So meaning they went back into the history of recorded music and used all of that without permission to train the model, so that then people can go in and type, give me a track in the style of, with this vibe and whatever. And it's going to give you back, songs, material that sounds familiar, makes sense within the kind of canon of music that, we know. So, you're probably aware of this on some level, whether you've used it or not, because it's kind of all over the news in the music world. And I think I've only written one email that talked about AI specifically. I've kind of avoided it, just because I think, it's not often that I feel like I have an original thing to say about it. It's not that everything has to be original, but it's one of those things. It's like we've never had to like think about this before, or at least that's the way I feel. I've never had to, when I was a kid playing guitar in front of my mirror along to Jimi Hendrix records as a 12-year-old, I never imagined this would even exist. So it's just an interesting one. It just takes some time to get your thoughts, together on something like this, I find. And a lot of my thinking about AI in general has not really been in a musical context. It's like been more about like, what's it going to mean for society and the world as a whole. And it's still like any time I've like freaked out about it, it's been about that. Not so much about music. Although, yeah, like it's spun me out. There's something in, I think there's something in thinking about threats to the music industry that I'm like, there's always been threats. I'm used to that. I'm used to the feeling of like scarcity, I suppose. I try not to have that mindset now of scarcity, but it's hard for me to think of a different word. It's always been hard. And this is kind of leading me to what I'm going to talk about today, the idea of things being hard. But it's important for me to say as a sort of precursor that this isn't going to be like an anti-AI or an anti-Suno like rant per se. There's the quote I'm going to read in a second. I definitely, it definitely got me stirred up, and I have like lots to say about it. But I'm not at the stage where I'm like going, it's here. So I'm not trying to, it's hard to explain, but I'm not trying to I'm not trying to be someone who's just, you know, knee-jerk reaction is just like, this is evil and no. And I'm in community of producers that, you know, there's a dialogue going on about it, and I know like several producers and artists who, I mean, more than several, who use it a lot as part of their process. And then I know lots of people who are like, they would never in a million years use it. And the thing that I'm trying to stick to in my head at the moment is like, I don't know how I feel. And yeah, because I think it's kind of too early to draw that line in the sand. But reading this quote for the first time this week definitely pushed me further towards not being excited about the possibility of AI's role in music. So let me read the quote. So he says, "We didn't just want to build a company, let's say, that makes the current crop of creators 10% faster or makes it 10% easier to make music. If you want to impact the way 1 billion people experience music, you have to build something for 1 billion people. That is first and foremost giving everybody the joys of creating music. And this is a huge departure from how it is now. It's not really enjoyable to make music now. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of practice. You need to get really good at an instrument or really good at a piece of production software. I think the majority of people don't enjoy the majority of time they spend making music." So that there's so many sentences in that just like I wanted to stop, but I thought I'll just keep reading the quote. The first interesting thing about it is that in the first part of the quote, he's going, we didn't want to build something that just makes the current crop of creators 10% faster or makes it 10% easier to make music. So, you know, and I get what he's saying. Like, he's thinking as like a business person in terms of how do we make the product for the biggest possible market. And that's like anyone in the world who's inclined to in some way make music. And I suppose people who've never thought that they could ever make music, all of a sudden they can. And which doesn't sound like a bad thing, by the way. In some ways it does, in some ways it doesn't. The first and foremost, giving everybody the joys of creating music. So that is the first part that I was sort of a bit, it sort of stopped me in my tracks a little bit, because it's like, you're not giving everyone the joys of making music though, because the joys of making music are very different to entering a prompt and pressing generate. Like, so different to that. So that was number one. And this is a huge departure from how it is now. It's not really enjoyable to make music now. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of practice. You need to get really good at a piece of, really good at an instrument, or really good at a piece of production software. I think the majority of people don't enjoy the majority of time they spend making music. So this just bummed me out on like a whole nother level, because again, even beyond music, this attitude of like things needing to be enjoyable. Like, what, I get it, right? But like, I just think it's such a it's such an abstract concept. Like, if I go back to why I started playing music, it was because my parents asked me, "Do you want to play piano?" And I said, "Yep." And as a 6-year-old or whatever I was, I thought piano was, I liked going to the classes, and then I kind of didn't practice. I thought it was kind of boring. I didn't find it enjoyable. My parents got me to keep going till I was maybe 14. But when I was 12, I decided that if I want to be like in a rock band, I need to learn to play the guitar, because I was a big music fan and I was crazily into Elvis. And I think by then, by 12, I was into the Beatles. Yeah, definitely. Actually, I got into the Beatles when I was like 8 or 9. So I had a buddy who played guitar, and I would go around to his house and I would play piano, but I was like, I don't know how to play this music on piano. My teacher wasn't teaching me like, Fats Domino or like or Elton John or like any piano players. I didn't really even know about that. Or no Beatles songs really. I maybe knew one Beatles song. But then so he lent me a guitar and I like took to it really, really naturally. And it was enjoyable from jump, and it continued to be enjoyable. But there's a level of, just stopping there for a second. Piano wasn't enjoyable to me, so I stopped. Guitar was enjoyable, so I kept going. So then beyond that, for years I then played guitar. On the whole, it's enjoyable, right? Because I keep doing it. But that's like the initial reason I start doing it, I guess. But really the reason is like, I want to be able to play the music I love and be in a rock band. I need to play the guitar. It's fun. It's a reason I was doing it. Then it became like the whole, every day after school, it was like the thing that I did when I came home. And I would have I'd come in and I'd have this stereo, and I would put on a CD, and I would like plug the guitar in, and I'd probably like log into MSN Messenger on my computer. And then I'd stand there and I'd just play for as long until dinner, and then after dinner. And like that was just everything to me. And it was, I guess you'd say it was enjoyable, but more than that, it was like a place for me to be. And I put this quote up on my Instagram stories yesterday, and a few people responded to it. But one of the people that follows me on Instagram, Yuri, who has I think his project's called The Apple Thief, or it might just be Apple Thief. But he said like it helped music, and the process of making and creating music helped him find his way in the world and understand the world. And I was like, yes, that's what it is. That's what guitar was doing for me. So the idea that something is, just to boil it down to like it's enjoyable or not enjoyable, is just like such an oversimplification of the whole reason why we'd make music. And I'm just talking about like one little pocket of my musical journey before I even started writing songs or like recording or doing any of that. Just like finding an instrument, connecting with it as an activity, and like doing it. And yeah, the idea that like, it's like, do I sit down in the studio now every time I go to produce and go, this is enjoyable? Like actively, do I think that every time? Not every time, but it's also not unenjoyable. There are times where it's a struggle, and I'm like, I really want to like solve this, or I really want to find the missing piece, or like, why isn't this coming together, or like I can't get the right take, or whatever it is. Same with songwriting, like, as you know, like how many times is it like so frustrating to like sit down and not have any ideas, or like write an idea and just be like, oh, I hate this. And it's like, you know, if you're me, you don't stop then a lot of the time because it's not enjoyable. But that's not the point. Like, if I just wanted enjoyment, I would just go, like, I don't know, what do you do for fun? I would go, I'd watch Seinfeld, or like I'd go get go to a nice cafe and get a coffee, or I'd go, like, I need more hobbies, apparently. But you go fishing or something. Like, the idea that it needs to be enjoyable or you just won't do it. I mean, I see what he's saying, because if you go back to me, why I stopped playing the piano, it's like it wasn't only just because I didn't find it enjoyable, but it wasn't like getting me to where I wanted to go, musically. So yeah, I just think it's such a profound misunderstanding of why we get into playing instruments, singing, learning how to make music on a computer, produce, record, write songs, whatever. It's such a profound misunderstanding of that. And the idea that, like, Suno, or just the idea, forgetting about Suno, the idea that, like, you can enter a prompt, press enter, like press generate, and a piece of music appears. The idea that gives you the feeling of what it is to create music is just, like, completely wrong. Like, completely false advertising. It's sort of like, it's kind of like a game, like, it's like, I don't know. I've tried coding things, like vibe coding things with AI, where it's like, because I don't have any idea how to code, but like these little carousels that I put up on Instagram, like, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if the background images I used were just like preloaded, everything was like, all the text was in the right place, and I didn't have to get into Canva or Photoshop and, like, align it differently every time and export it all. So I managed to vibe code an app that just lives on my computer that has everything preloaded, and I just enter the text that I want, and then I can export the carousels, and it probably saves me like 20 minutes every time I make one, which is great, And before AI came, I couldn't have done that. Like, I would never have the patience to learn how to code. I guess because, on the one hand, on the one hand, you might say because it's not enjoyable, but it's like, on the other hand, I just wasn't inclined to, like, it's not really in my goals to do that. So the idea, I don't know, I just think maybe you can consider coding. Maybe there's people who start coding as kids, and it feels like guitar did to me. Like, I suppose that's completely possible. Sorry if I'm, like, rambling a bit, because, like, I'm trying to figure this stuff out in my head as I'm talking about it. And kind of extend the, like, argument of what he's saying. But anyway, like, I'd be interested to hear, actually, someone who is a programmer or a coder who, what their take is on, like, the whole vibe coding thing. And similarly, I mean, this is happening in every industry, and this is the other reason why, like, I haven't really spoken about it at all on these newsletters or on my social media, because it's like, it's happening in every industry right now. Like, so the idea that, like, we're all in the same boat. And yeah, and that's why also, I'm not complaining here. It's literally seeing this quote just got me fired up and thinking about this idea of like enjoyment, and enjoyment being the criteria as to whether something is worth doing or not. It also raises this interesting idea of like democratization. And I've heard, I'm not going to quote the CEO of Suno here, but I know that I've read a dialogue. It may be him who's one of the people who's saying this, but it's the idea that like through AI platforms, the process of making music is becoming democratized. Meaning, well, yeah, you know what democratized means, but just to unpack it for myself, it's like the tools. It's been democratized for some time in my mind. Like the tools of making music, on some level, have been available always. Yes, you need to be able to afford an instrument or whatever, but if you can sing, you can sing. You know, like singing's an interesting one. Maybe we talk about singing for a second, because say, you know, I'm not a great singer. I'm not ashamed of my voice or the way it sounds, but for years I was. Now I'm just like, I sound like I sound. It's not the main thing that I do. But, there have been times where like, gosh, I wish I was a great singer. The idea now that I can like make a clone of my voice in AI that can hit any note and like inflect how I want it to and, be perfect, in no way does that make me want to create music like that using that tool. In no way do I feel like the skill of singing is now democratized, because to me, not having a great voice, I can now suddenly do it. Now, totally different if I didn't have the ability to speak or sing. Like that, there's definitely a case to be made for like the power in that. To be able to use AI to suddenly communicate with a voice on a recording, or just in a practical sense of, typing something in and having it be spoken by an AI voice. If you don't have the ability to speak, like that's incredible. And that is a powerful use of AI, obviously. But the idea that, we're democratizing music and the skills of music for everyone, it's a bit like saying like, I'm not going to be able to come up with this analogy, right? I was trying to say this to my wife yesterday, like the idea of like, how do we democratize professional basketball? Like we've made this robotic AI app that basically you can stand there and like hit a button and it will shoot the basketball into the basket from the 3-point line every time without fail. And by doing that, we've democratized basketball, because now anyone can make that shot. And it's like, it's not what it is. I don't know if that analogy works, but that's what it feels like to me, because it's like all the time that, the great artists put into their craft and learning the instrument, like learning to sing, using their talent that they've been blessed with, but also developing their skill and their ability and, doing that over years and years. And yes, enjoying it at times, but also struggling and going through ups and downs and like experiencing joy and frustration and, all the things. That's the process. He's saying music's hard because it takes a lot of practice. You need to get really good at an instrument or really good at a piece of production software. It's like, yeah, that's like the whole point, you know? It's just wild. I was saying to Yuri actually, like on Instagram, it really makes me think about if I have kids, like I really will encourage them to do things like skateboarding or surfing or playing an instrument, because you know it teaches you that like if you it's okay if you're not great at it straight away. And in fact with skating or something, like it's really scary. You're not going to be great at it straight away. Like you might enjoy it, but like there's going to be times where you get hurt actually. And there will be times where you're like, oh, I don't really want to go back. But then you do, because it's got this like, you're like, I really want to get that trick nailed or whatever. You can tell I'm not a skater. That's why my Instagram handles, I wish I skated. But yeah, like this kind of talk of like, you know what? It's not fun. You've got to like practice, got to learn an instrument, got to like figure out how to do production software. It's like, yeah, you could probably do that though in like a few weeks on YouTube. Like if you're so inclined, if you want to make music like on any level, like then, and you've got this kind of calling, you feel that within you, like you'll do that. You know, like you'll pick up an instrument or sing or play, get a free DAW, which on the computer, like, or on your phone. Like we're pretty democratized like already, right? And I think, yeah, it sort of just like becomes a little like 2-minute experiment for someone to go like, yeah, what can I make? Like, cool. It's like, it's not going to give them this like feeling of like, working for a year on something and then finishing it. Like that's very different. I need to change cards here. Yeah, really, really, really wild. This idea of, if there's nothing in the way of like, no work, no process, no struggle, no practice, none of that. If there's none of that, and it's just we want the thing, we get it. We want the thing, we get it. Like the wants are gonna go away, I think, because it's like, the whole reason, when I started playing guitar and wanting to make music, it was like I would look at the Beatles, look at Jimi Hendrix, look at, Elvis, and be like, that, like, it's like, how? I couldn't imagine how they got to be that amazing and that good, and how it affected me so much. And it's like, I mean, I heard Elvis's voice the other week. I saw a live clip, and I hadn't thought about, Elvis Presley actively for years. And I came across this clip, and it made me feel, hearing his voice and seeing him sing, it made me feel like I did the first time I heard him when I was a child. And it was this feeling of like, I don't know how to describe it. He just has this quality. But it's, in my mind as a kid, picking up an instrument, finding the guitar and going, this could be my vehicle to get somewhere close to that. Like the goal was so far in the distance and so huge, so lofty. And something in my mind was like, you can do that. Like in some way, but it's almost as if, because it seems so otherworldly to me and so just like from outer space and so almost impossible, like that was almost the appeal of it. So if that, if then I could have just like entered a prompt and gone, yes, like create, it wouldn't have given me the satisfaction on any level. So anyway, it's interesting, like just going around and around in circles in my head here with you guys, because, yeah, I don't really know where where we've landed. I feel a little more settled, I suppose. It's not that I think, like, I just don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. Like, I was going to say, it's not that I think, Suno is going to be the only music that people listen to, or generated AI music is, but I just honestly don't know. I know that, the music that I make and that you guys make and that, artists everywhere make, there's always going to be artists who don't have anything to do with AI. There's always going to be human music, is what I'm trying to say. And right now, we're at the kind of the beginning of this whole thing. So it feels very raw. And like I said, this isn't an anti-AI rant, because it's here. I guess my hope is that, like, if there's a version of AI being in the, in some way intertwined in the music making process, if it encourages and enables humans who are truly passionate about making music to do more of that and be more with each other as humans, that would be a good outcome. I don't know if that's what's happening or if it's going to happen or whatever, but that's just, trying not to be all doom and gloom about it. That could be an outcome. We've had Splice and those sorts of loop based and sample based libraries for a while, where you can just drag and drop things, and it's made it a lot easier to make music quickly. But I still use a lot of session musicians, and I know a lot of people do. So I guess what I'm saying is before Splice, there were like CDs with just filled with breakbeats and samples, that you could use your MPC or whatever and sample them and make music that way. So that sort of thing's always been around. And for each of those, I suppose people thought, oh, this could be the end of human to human. But I think that's I guess that's the hope for me, is like, if AI is here, like, how do we harness it to further inspire humans to make music with other humans? Can it make it that easier? Not that it needs to be easy. Can it further enable that? Yeah, and I don't know. Even if in reaction against AI, it drives more people to make music with each other, that'd be good. Oh man, I've read this quote too many times now. I hope this has made some sort of sense. I'd love to hear where you're at with the whole AI debate, and what you think about this quote, these ideas that we've talked about. Yeah, I'm actually in a really good mood today, because my Fender Super Reverb from 1966 came back from the amp tech, and it was there for, I want to say, like almost 6 months getting fixed, because it was a literal barn find. Like, you hear that term from time to time, but this was like, it was a Facebook Marketplace listing, went out to this person's literal barn, and he's like, yeah, it's been in here for 20 years, filled with dust and spiders and like very rough. But now it's back and working. So that's what I'm going to do right after this, is play through that amp. And I'll make a video about it as well. But yeah, thanks for sitting and talking me through this whole AI thing. This will be quite a long video, so if you've made it to the end, thank you. If you want to work together, all my links are down below. You can get a consult call to talk about your song, the songwriting, the production, the arrangement. We can also talk about making a whole song together with remote production, or if you're in Sydney, in-person production. And but I'd just love to hear what you're working on, even if you don't want to work together. So always feel free to share. All right, thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.